Here's a video with everything you need to know to play saxophone in your first week. My name is Mr. Lenz, and today we're going to cover putting the saxophone together, how to hold the saxophone, and learning to play your first few notes. Let's get started. The first thing that you're going to need is a reed. Okay, they come in these little plastic cases. Take that out, stick it on your tongue, and get it kind of spitty. That helps it vibrate on the mouthpiece to make your sounds. So you can do that while you're getting your other pieces out. The next thing that you're going to need is your mouthpiece and the neck. And on the mouthpiece and the neck, what we're going to do is just going to put that mouthpiece on just like that, wiggle it a little bit, and should look like this. So the opening is on the underside. You're going to take that freshly spitty reed and notice that there's a flat side and a rounded side. So you're going to put the flat side of the reed on the flat part of the mouthpiece, just like that. And then we're going to get the ligature, which is that shiny piece, that shiny metal piece, and we're going to just slide it right over the top of the mouthpiece. You want to be really careful here not to hit the end of the reed because you can chip it or crack it and then it's done and you'll have to get a new one. So you'll slide that on. Make sure that the ligature is right past the ridge there on the mouthpiece, and then you can tighten that down. Now, making sure just to double check that your reed is centered side to side and it's not sticking out past the tip of the mouthpiece or underneath the tip of the mouthpiece. You want to make sure it's right even with the end there. And the first thing you should do really every day you start on this first week of playing is make sure that you start playing on just the mouthpiece to get your embouchure set just right. So we're going to start by squawking on the neck, the mouthpiece and the neck to get our face set up correctly. So first of all, we want to make sure that our bottom lip is right over our bottom teeth, like that, okay? And that's where the mouthpiece is going to rest. Sometimes people will put their teeth right on the reed and that'll get a really bad sound really quick. So just like that, okay? And then top teeth on the mouthpiece, like that, okay? And then you're gonna put your lips around it and then just blow air through the horn. And you should get kind of that squawking kind of sound. Now, if it sounds like this, where it's lower, that just means you're not firm enough on there. We want to have firm corners, flat chin, as you're blowing through there. So do that a couple times just to get used to that. Now, if you're doing that and it makes a really loud, high-pitched squeak, that's your cue that you have too much mouthpiece in. Like it'll make a squeaky honk kind of sound. And that's just the instrument saying, hey, put less mouthpiece in your mouth. So you'll back it out. And then if you go too far, you won't be able to blow air through because you're too thin on there and it's pinching the reed shut. Sometimes that'll happen when students are trying to blow through there. They can't get air through because they're squeezing too tight on there and they're pinching the reed too close to the mouthpiece. So just make sure that you're not pinching too tight on the end of the mouthpiece. Make sure you have enough mouthpiece in, probably about 50% or so, and then like that. And if you get that squeak like that, you'll know you're too far on the mouthpiece. Okay, now let's put this in the horn. So we're going to get our saxophone and we're going to put it in just like this. You're just going to wiggle and push. Don't force it. It shouldn't go hard in there. Tighten that screw down so that the neck won't move on you. You're going to put your neck strap, hook it onto that mouth, to the saxophone right there. And then it should be right about at mouth height, okay? If it's too high, obviously that's not going to work. If it's too low, you're always going to have to be holding the instrument up. And really the neck strap's job is to hold the instrument so that your fingers can just work on pushing the buttons, not holding the instrument up and pushing the buttons. Let's talk about where your hands go on the instrument. So your left hand is going to be on this little thumb rest key. It looks different on every kind of saxophone, but this one's black. And then this is the thumb key here. So this is the octave key. And then on the front of the instrument, you're going to find 3 buttons that you're going to push. Some saxophones have this one with a pearl on it and some don't, so don't let that mess you up. But you're going to press that first key there, skip the small key, and then second finger and third finger. So it should look just like that. The main thing is just making sure that we're not pushing that middle key right there, okay? And then your right hand, your thumb will go underneath the thumb rest, and then you're going to find 1, 2, 3 on the bottom. And that's it. So that's how you hold the saxophone when you're playing. Now let's talk about the fingering chart that you see in your book. So in the fingering chart, you'll see 3 circles on top and then a line and then 3 circles on bottom. And those top 3 circles, 1, 2, 3, are for your top 3 fingers. The bottom 3 circles, 1, 2, 3, are for your bottom 3 fingers. And that little teardrop shape to the side of it is for that thumb key. All right. So if you're looking at your first note, which will probably be D in your book, you're going to be pressing all of those fingers down, except for your pinkies. Those get to just hang out. And that's going to sound like this. Okay, so that's what your first note should sound like. And you're going to use gentle, easy air. You don't have to use really fast, hard air. You can just nice, gentle, easy air, and you would go for that rounded, warm tone. Okay, so D will have all of those fingers down. Now the next note, C, is almost the opposite. You're going to have just one finger down, that middle finger on your left hand. Notice that D is the only note right now that's going to have that thumb key. All of the other notes don't have that thumb key down. So you can just put that thumb on that thumb rest and leave it parked there for the other ones, okay? So for your C, we're just pushing that middle finger down and blowing through there, okay? Making sure that we're focusing on those fundamentals, the firm corners, flat chin when we're blowing, and making sure we don't have too much mouthpiece in with our bottom lip over our bottom teeth, top teeth on the mouthpiece, like that, okay? The next note that you're going to be learning is your B, which is just first finger and no other fingers. You can try that on your own now if you want to pause and do that, or we can go on to the next one. The next note that we're going to learn is A. So we're just going to add one more finger down the horn. It should sound like this. And if you want to pause to see if yours sounds like that, you sure can right now. And then your last note is G. So you're going to put that third finger down, just like that. Okay, so those are your first 5 notes. Now let's talk about a couple common pitfalls. For saxophone, we have these palm keys right here and right here on the side that sometimes our hands bump, and that can cause your saxophone to squeak and squawk and make some really funky noises. So if it's not working right, chances are you're bumping one of those keys accidentally, or maybe one of your other fingers aren't pushed down all the way. So it's important, if your saxophone is just making squawks or squeaks or not sounding right, double check that your palms aren't touching those palm keys. And if everything's clear there, you're pushing the right buttons down, making sure that you're on the correct fingers are on the correct buttons up on the top here, then double check your embouchure around the mouthpiece, making sure you're doing the right things there. Sometimes that if our reed is not centered or on there correctly, then that can also cause problems too. Hopefully that's helpful as you get playing this first week on saxophone. That's everything you need to know to get started on your first 5 notes. Remember that 5 days a week of practice is the recipe for success. Good luck. I know you'll do great.